Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the US Futures Weekly Chart Analysis for the week ending 31st of January 2025. First chart is the US Dollar Index Futures. I'm using a coloured chart today because it more clearly shows the price action as it's attempting to leave one zone of trade and challenge the other. Down here is the more recent and extended trading range the market's been in. You can see the market's pulled out. It's moved up to the next higher trading range. There is resistance expected up there. Around about the 110 level and higher sees the resistance really increase. There was a brief challenge to this level earlier. Supply was drawn out on this bar and prices pulled back in response. And the market has found some support right on top of the old trading range in here. And it's just bounced up a little bit from there on relatively low volume. So selling pressure has eased as prices come back to the old trading range and the market's found some modest support. There isn't really strong buying support emerged. What's really happened is that selling pressure has eased and that's allowed the market to recover. Generally, I would expect a test for supply early in response, and then perhaps a continued push higher if selling pressure is found to be low. E-mini S&P, this is S&P 500 index futures, and the market has pulled back this week. You've got the highs of the range really through here. This really wasn't a push to a higher level. Very narrow spreads, lowish volumes. This is the highs of the range in here. The market made an attempt to break out last week. It's moved into consolidation mode this week, but it's pulled back a little more deeply than you might like to see in a really strong market. It suggests an element of softness in the market or perhaps uncertainty with the depth of the pullback moving below the previous bar's low. It has recovered to close at the important level, which is a positive, no doubt. And it may be that the market has really pulled back more deeply to challenge and remove the sellers in the market. And hopefully that recovery back to the important level suggests that's been done. That would allow the market to move higher in response. But that remains to be seen. The market has pulled back a little more deeply and on relatively high volume too. So there's certainly been some supply in the market, and we'll just have to see how the market trades in response to that. Similar to the US dollar index futures, a test for supply very early in the week is highly likely after last week's trading. And then you'll see the market respond depending on how much supply is actually drawn out. US Treasury 10-year note futures. The important level comes through here. The market made a challenge to that level this week. Volume increased to slightly above the average and price was pushed back down to the important level. That suggests that some more supply has been drawn out and the market's finding it hard going to move up above that level. Similar to the previous two charts, the most obvious response is some form of testing for supply to see how much selling pressure is actually in the market. If the selling pressure continues, you'll probably see price pull back more deeply. And if the selling pressure is found to be relatively low, there may be a secondary challenge to this level. Copper price futures. Copper price futures have been trading in a range for a while now. These are the important levels at the moment. There was a period of sideways trading in here where the market appeared to be building up strength. It's made a push higher. There was some supply drawn out on this bar as it moved to the higher level. And since then, the market's been trading in consolidation and absorption mode with relatively narrow spreads and showing a reluctance to move lower. This is the market attempting to absorb the supply to open a path of least resistance for the market to move higher within. So these narrow spreads on average volumes suggest that the market is able to absorb the supply at this level, and at some point when trading conditions become favourable, the market will push higher in response. Gold price futures. Gold price futures have moved out of the range they had been trading in. Here was the range. And the market's pushed higher in response. You can see the market tests for supply and then pushes higher, and then tests for supply and pushes higher. And once again this week, tests for supply and then pushes higher. This week saw an increase in volume to well above average, and price is really moving high with some intent now. The close was relatively positive, right up near the week's high, despite the high volume, which suggests that the buyers are holding the upper hand in the market. I would expect the response to continue as it has done, with a test for supply early. These markets often test for supply early in the week, and then if supply is found to be relatively low, the market pushes higher in response later in the week. And that's highly likely again this week. Silver price futures. Silver price futures moved above the highs of the recent range, where the market's been building up some strength for a while now in here. The highs of the overall range come through at a similar level, and prices challenged that level this week and pushed above it. There'll almost certainly be an early test for supply next week, in like this. And then if supply is found to be low, I expect the market will attempt to continue higher. Light crude price futures. Light crude price futures have pushed out of the trading range it was trading within in here. Here was the push higher. Here was the highs of the range through here. There was some supply drawn out on this bar here for sure, this very high volume. Prices come back in response, and now price is testing the strength of the original breakout at this level here, which was the highs of the range. I would expect an attempt to hold on at this level, at least initially, perhaps like this. If supply continues to be drawn out, I expect the market will push back within this older range, where there should be some safety and the supply should dry up to some extent. If supply is not found to be strong early in the week, the market may recover and push back into this range here. So watch for the amount of supply drawn out early in the week, which seems to be how all of the markets so far are setting up, with some testing for supply early and then a response depending on how much supply is actually drawn out. Euro US dollar currency futures. Here's the lows of the range. You can see there was a reluctance to move lower through here, and some buying support emerged on this bar, and in response, price pushed higher and recovered back above this level. The pullback this week is consolidation. It's a little more deep than you'd like to see in a relatively strong market. The market's almost certainly going to test the strength of this level next week. A stronger market would pull back with a shallower spread than what's been seen in this market this week. So while there has been some recovery, at this point it doesn't look particularly strong. I would expect a test of this level next week, and we'll see how strong this market is. British pound currency futures. Similar in some respects to the euro. Here's the important levels. You can see the reluctance to move lower came through here, and some buying support emerged on this bar. The response higher and up to the highs of the previous level. and then a relatively narrow spread on the period of consolidation in response, and the low volume down here suggests that selling pressure was low as price pulled back. This market's acting a little stronger than the euro, at least it was this week, and that sets the market up to trade right up higher in the range in here. There may be a little more consolidation in response, particularly earlier in the week, and if selling pressure remains low, you'll probably see price up at the highs of the range, or perhaps even challenging it, depending on what's exactly happening in the US dollar at the time. Japanese yen currency futures. The levels come through like this. There was a reluctance to move lower here and price responded higher. Supply was drawn out on these two bars. Price pulled back in response. Some buying support emerged on this bar here, and this sideways action suggested a reluctance to move lower. This is a market building up strength. Prices pushed higher. Volume increased considerably this week to above the average, and the close was off the week's high. So some supply was likely drawn out as price moved higher this week. You'll almost certainly see the market test for supply in response early in the week, and then it will respond depending on how much supply is drawn out. If supply continues to be drawn out, you'll see price pull back more deeply to challenge the sellers, or at least attempt to. And if supply is found to be low, the market will probably move higher again in response, perhaps up to this level, the highs of last week's range. Aussie dollar currency futures saw a reluctance to move lower down here. Some buying support emerged here. Here was the response higher, but prices pulled back with a fairly wide spread back to the breakdown line here, with perhaps a wider spread than you'd like to see in a really strong market. I would expect this level, the 62 cent level, which is a really important level, is going to be tested for strength next week. And we'll just see how strong this market is. If the market can't hold on, the levels below are quite a way down here. There's not a great deal in here to support the market. The next level begins here, down to this level here, with an intermediate level in the middle. So this 62 cent level is an important level on the chart. You would like to see the market hold on up there, or it's going to be fairly easy to move the market down to the 60 cent level, where the next higher support level might be within this overall range. Bitcoin futures. Bitcoin futures had been trading quite strongly up here. Started to draw out supply up here. There was certainly supply drawn out last week on this very high volume. Volume remained high this week. There was a reluctance to move lower, so this market's attempting to absorb the supply being drawn out. The mid-bar close illustrates this. You've seen supply in the market foreshore the previous week and this week, very high volumes. The close well off the week's low does suggest the market's attempting to absorb the supply being drawn out. It's doing a pretty good job so far, but if supply continues to be drawn out, generally these markets will move back in response to challenge the sellers, or at least attempt to challenge the sellers. If supply eases off and is found to be low, you may find price pushes higher in response later in the week. But almost certainly the market will pull back a little initially and just check to see how much supply is in the market. Expect a deeper pullback if supply continues to be drawn out, and a recovery of some degree if supply is found to be relatively low. Just back to the US dollar index futures quickly. the market has found that selling pressure has eased as prices come back to the highs of the older trading range. That's allowed the market to recover somewhat. You can see down here that volume reduced to below average this week, and that's the illustration that selling pressure has eased and allowed the market to float higher in response. Generally, you'll see an increase in volume if the market attempts to continue higher. There is going to be some more resistance up above this level. Perhaps the most likely outcome, at least early, is for a narrow spread test for supply, just to see how the market is trading, and then you'll see the response depending on how much supply is actually drawn out. Okay, thanks for your time. Good to be back live again. See you next week. See ya.